I was not paid to promote any products or make this video, but I would like to thank MacKite for lending me their demo gear. A link to MacKite can be found in the description.
This is a Go Foil, and this is the P180 front wing. At just over 1,300 square centimeters in area and 107 centimeters in wingspan, this is the smallest area high aspect ratio wing that I've ever seen, and I'm anxious to give it a try.
This is the first time I've seen and assembled a Go Foil. I wanted to share 10 impressions I had as I assembled it. Number 1, talk about a simple system. Go Foil has collapsed the mast, base plate, and fuselage into a single piece with no assembly required, and more importantly, no way for water to get in. Number 2, I was amazed that only 4 screws are required to assemble. 1 set screw for the front wing, 1 screw for the pedestal. This is the fuselage extension, we'll talk about it in a little bit. And 2 screws to attach the rear wing to the pedestal. I found the surfaces were nicely painted. This wing looks particularly nice. I'm not sure how well the paint will hold up, but it looks sleek right now. The mast looked a little wider than I was used to. It's about 1.5 centimeters wider than the masts I'm familiar with. And number 5, this is what Go Foil calls the pedestal. The pedestal slides onto the fuselage. Go Foil has 2 of them, the 6.5 and the 9.5 inch. This is the 9.5 inch. The pedestal slides onto the fuselage and has 1 set screw to hold it in place. You'll see here that I mounted it upside down. I came to realize that afterwards, once I had mounted it. Number 6, the P180 has a nice elliptical shape and high aspect ratio, and it's quite thin too, so I'd expect very low drag. When mounting the P180, it didn't slide on easily. I found that it's a tight fit and needed to push it on far enough to get the set screw lined up. But it certainly is a simple and fast connection with just 1 set screw. And number 9, even when I had this wing on nicely, there was still a gap between the wing and the fuselage. I was told not to push the wing any further if the screw already lined up, as if I had tried to close the gap I might damage the wing or it will be difficult to remove. And finally, number 10, all the screws had the same exact hex head. With 4 screws for the foil plus 4 screws for the board, I was amazed at how simple and fast this was to mount up. Unfortunately, there isn't a way to slide the screws onto the base plate before tightening them down, as I've seen this with other manufacturers, so you need to carefully line up the nuts in the foil track with the screws. And with that, we're ready to go. The P180 is a unique wing. At 1354 square centimeters, it's smaller than I'm used to, but I figured that its high aspect ratio would make up for its smaller area. 8.4 is a big aspect ratio wing. This is the highest aspect ratio wing that I've reviewed. This setup is paired with the 9.5 inch pedestal, which gives a 78.5 centimeter length from the leading edge of the front wing to the trailing edge of the rear wing. This is also paired with the 18 inch flat tail wing, which is also high aspect ratio. It had been a few months since I've been on the Axis 910, but I thought it would be the best wing to compare the P180 to. They have similar area, different aspect ratios, but I was able to select a fuselage and rear wing that were comparable to this Go Foil setup. With both setups mounted up, we were ready to hit the water. High aspect ratio wings have a tendency to suddenly lift, and I found it quite difficult to come out of the water the first time I ever tried one. This was really no different. In fact, it was probably amplified because the aspect ratio is greater than 8. One of the coolest things a foil unlocks is the ability to surf small wakes on a lake, from small boats or even a jet ski. For folks on lakes without a boat that can put off a huge surf wake, you can still surf with a foil behind nearly any boat. Here I am surfing the second wake of my jet ski. I always want to see if a new wing I surf can surf a tiny wake. You can see here that the P180 could surf the wake reasonably well, but I did have to pump the wing every so often to keep it going. If you're a beginner not yet able to pump, this is a consideration when choosing a foil. At a nearly 107 centimeter wingspan, I didn't expect this wing to carve as fluidly as it did, but it felt quite nice. By far my favorite feature was the glide of this wing. As I'd pump it, I'd really get to enjoy the glide between subsequent pumps. As is the case with high aspect ratio wings, and this wing being no different, these wings are very sensitive to angle of attack. The lift force changes very dramatically with small changes in angle of attack, and it takes some getting used to, but is certainly enjoyable once you get the hang of it. When compared to the 910, I found that the P180 could glide a little bit longer, and as you can see in this video, I had to pump the P180 a little bit later than the 910 to keep the lift going. With both setups, I released the rope pretty far away from home and pumped all the way back to my dock. As you can see, the Go Foil was a little ahead of the axis in this side-by-side clip, but the main takeaway is that the pumping speed and cadence are similar.
I've been using my 11-liter Dwarfcraft 3'6" exclusively for my bungee tests, but today I'm going to need a bigger board because these wings are smaller. This is the 4'8" Escape Pod. At 45 liters, this should give enough buoyancy to let me launch myself off my dock with a bungee. This was an enjoyable test. I really enjoyed the Go Foil setup. I found it simple and fast to set up with very few screws. I did find, however, it was challenging to water start. These high aspect wings are tough, and this was particularly tough.
I found that the P180 was unable to surf the second wake of the jet ski without pumping, but neither could the Axis 910. And I found the P180 surprisingly good at carving given its high wingspan of nearly 107 centimeters. And number 5, good flat water pumping and excellent gliding capability. This was a very pleasant wing to pump and glide. However, the stall speed comes into question. As you saw in the bungee starts, I was really unable to get this wing up very easily compared to the Axis 910. I think this is a nice setup from Go Foil, and the P180 is a wing I can certainly recommend for the lake, especially for lighter riders or riders that have a bigger wake to surf. In my case, I don't believe this wing replaces my 910, as I found the Axis 910 performed similarly to the P180 for most of the tests we showed here today.